So that's the context for what a constitutional sheriff is. It is a LARPing dipshit who wants to do like the forever purge, but in real life. And to be perfectly frank, it's a good thing that most of these guys are fat and tase themselves in the balls until their heart explodes. Going on than this. Next up on the docket was we wanted to talk about FEMA. What's going on with FEMA?
FEMA disaster recoveries were forced to be temporarily halted in North Carolina after the agency said it received several reports of threats being made against their teams on the ground. In one county, FEMA workers had to stop work after National Guard troops reported seeing armed militia threatening them nearby. CNN's Isabel Rosales has the latest on this. What's happening here?
That's fucking wild.
Kate, good morning. Certainly a very serious situation that has actually forced FEMA workers out of an abundance of caution to work out of secure locations instead of going door to door to those deeply impacted areas of Western North Carolina to get people the help that they need. This was first reported on by the Washington Post, stating that National Guard troops witnessed armed militia making threats against FEMA workers. Now, of course, we don't know if that threat is credible. We have put out a call to FEMA to try to get more information about that. But we've had two communities that have been impacted by these threats. That's Ashe and Rutherford counties, with the sheriff of Ashe County saying this. He urged residents to, quote, stay calm and steady during our recovery to help folks, and please don't stir the pot. And of course, Kate, this comes amid a backdrop of misinformation that has been circulating about the federal response to Milton and Helene. This has deeply upsetted many local officials that I've spoken with, not just in North Carolina, but Florida.
Yeah, what they're talking about is stuff like this. Hold on. I had to create my own, like a separate TikTok, so I wouldn't have this like infecting my my other one, which I don't really even use all that much. It's mostly just to watch videos that Kara sends to me. But yeah, so as you can see right here, what they're trying to demonstrate is that they're just, called rotor washing, which is basically just pushing stuff with the thrust from their from the chopper blades. But the only problem with that is that like there are a lot more subtle ways for them to get in there and disrupt and destroy like relief efforts. Like much easier ways under the cover of night, like all this other stuff. It's like it's fucking crazy to think that this is what that this has anything to do with anything else.
But if you had a message.
Federal responders are being evacuated out of Rutherford County, North Carolina, after the National Guard reported that there are militias hunting them. In-person aid applications have now been suspended in at least 2 locations, and FEMA will no longer go door-to-door with disaster assistance. In another incident, FEMA was threatened by a resident, resulting in them leaving a different area. You also have the local police department saying they hope FEMA comes back because the area really needs the aid. But all of this is the result of disinformation on a scale we've never...
Let's finish this.
Too, because this is taking up the resources that could be used toward recovery, and instead they're online on social media telling people, hey, this is false information, don't believe this. So this is taking up a lot of their time.
Basically
also
all over TikTok, which by the way it's so funny how TikTok has been like overrun with all of these like these conspiracy theory. Hey, Nike, cut it out. Nike, cut it out. Go dig somewhere else. It's just crazy that these. She was digging on the carpet. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Say hi to people. Anyway, so it's just crazy that they it's just crazy that like the Chinese app is like getting filled by like real American hogs, the same people who would tell, like the same like big backed mother who would tell you, like the same people irradiated with irradiated soda brain who would tell you that like China's a big threat to America, motherfucker. But we need to have all the jobs here. It's just like they're posting all over this fucking app with like conspiracy theories. And it's just like, dude, you're doing the job. You were doing that job. And I'm like, this isn't even me saying like having a conspiracy theory like, oh, China's doing this to destabilize us. I've heard it said before, but like the Great Chinese Firewall, that's for keeping us out. There's a reason why, like, they're like, oh, TikTok, the Chinese TikTok is different than the American TikTok. And it's just like, I'm honestly, it's 50-50. 50% of it is because like they want to keep people from talking about the Uyghur Muslim genocide. And then the other 50% of why they have a separate TikTok is so that they don't catch any of the brain diseases that Americans give themselves with their own media consumption. Like it's literally it literally has nothing to do with spreading propaganda to us. It's literally they're like, we need a separate app because we can't have our people watching the same shit that Americans watch because it makes them fucking crazy.
Actually open up a section of their website called the Hurricane Rumor Response section to, again, try to bat down all of this misinformation, Kate.
And Isabel, you were in Florida last week covering the Hurricane Milton for us. What are you hearing in terms of the latest recovery efforts there?
Yeah, it's a long task ahead for recovery in Florida, specifically because they're still dealing with all of this flooding. There's flooding warnings for major rivers, Hillsborough River. You also have other rivers there that have been flooding. We've seen the recovery happening around the area, with Sheriff Chad Chronister saying that unfortunately the waters are not receding as much as they would like. This is leading to a lot of deputies trying to help out people there. Then you've got fuel. You've got hard-hit areas like Tampa and St. Petersburg seeing 3/4 of gas stations without fuel, to the point that the state is stepping in, leading escorts of the fuel tankers, and also opening up fueling stations where people can get up to 10 gallons of fuel for free to try to help them turn the page on this. We also have some sound on this. Let's listen.
So much damage was already done. There was less for Milton to do. But again, just the stress level, it takes a toll.
But getting all of this stuff out of the street, all of the reminders of everything that was ruined, I think is really going to go a long way towards everybody in the community feeling like they can really move on.
Yeah, and that debris, Kate, is certainly a big priority. Governor DeSantis said as such. This is happening around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to remove all of that, specifically Helene debris, out of the way, because these are flying projectiles, extremely dangerous, and we're not out of hurricane season yet.
Yeah. Isabel, thank you very much.
And we have seen the power that misinformation has had in the wake of Hurricane Helene. But now that false information surrounding FEMA has taken a disturbing turn. If you haven't heard about this, listen up. 8 operations in Rutherford County, North Carolina, were suspended on Saturday after National Guard troops saw armed militia members threatening FEMA workers. In an urgent email to federal agencies obtained by the Washington Post, these militia members, the troops, quote, had come across 2 trucks of armed militia saying they were out hunting FEMA. As a result, FEMA tells CNN they've made safety adjustments in counties where federal workers are receiving threats. While about 100 miles north of Ashe County, the sheriff there posted on Facebook on Sunday that some 8 operations were paused out of an abundance of caution due to threats occurring in some counties. And while aid has resumed in these areas, these sorts of incidents spurred by misinformation continue to hurt communities already in need. In the face of that disinformation, communities ravaged by Helene are still trying to heal. Communities across western North Carolina, schools in particular, remain closed largely, with a timeline for reopening uncertain. In Buncombe County, home to Asheville, some 20,000 students.
Oh shit, JP Spears. Oh,
hey,
yeah,
is that the food and water for the victims? Give me that. Hey, I'm with FEMA here to help with hurricane rescue efforts. Yeah, FEMA, we're very prepared for hurricane season, which means we spend all the money for hurricane rescue efforts on making illegal border crossings as comfortable as possible. It's good to be prepared. Yeah, we can't really do anything for you, but if you want to go to Mexico and walk across the border, we can help you out there. Yeah, we use all our funds to basically reward illegals for crossing the border.
He was so funny making fun of like crunchy people. Like the youngins won't know this, but like this guy was really funny at making crunchy people, like at making these videos for crunchy people, and it's just like it's wild. It literally is like he's actually a great case example about like how the instant you become right wing, you lose all sense of what's funny.
Yeah, watching your kind of thing. Yeah, what little rescuing we are able to implement, we distribute as such based on equity. What? Oh, you're very
much for your time. We appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thank you, and thank you.
Crazy. Yeah, they also arrested a guy.
All right, so I want to take you back to that promised breaking news, new details over reported threats against FEMA first responders. So authorities say they've arrested a man in connection with these threats that paused some operations in North Carolina. Operations and outreach. CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga. We talked to you earlier talking about the problem. Now you're back on the stream talking about what the response is. What can you tell us about who was arrested?
Yeah, Reed, an update here. Authorities in North Carolina have arrested 44-year-old William Jacob Parsons of Bostic, North Carolina. We have the mugshot there. Parsons was arrested and charged with going armed to the terror of the public. He was armed with a handgun and a rifle. Here's what happened. The Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says this arrest was made after deputies were alerted around 1 p.m. local time Saturday that a white male had an assault rifle and had made a threat about possibly harming FEMA employees working after Hurricane Helene and that disaster in the Lake, Lurie, and Chimney Rock area. Those deputies alerted officers with the local police department and other agencies helping in those relief efforts. That is when FEMA made the decision to issue its stand down to officials. And again, just want to reiterate here that search and rescue efforts are still underway and that FEMA's disaster relief doors are still open. But there was a decision made not to go door to door at that time. Now, Parsons, the suspect here, was later identified by police and transported to the Rutherford County Sheriff's Detention Center Saturday, where he was charged and received a $10,000 bond. He made bond. He was released Saturday. Doors are still open, but there was a decision made not to go door to door at that time. Now, Parsons, the suspect here, was later identified by police and transported to the Rutherford County Sheriff's Detention Center Saturday, where he was charged and received a $10,000 bond. He made bond. He was released Saturday evening, while police had initially heard reports of an armed militia. After further investigation, it was determined that Parsons acted alone. And I spoke with Captain Jamie Keever with Rutherford County's Sheriff's Office this afternoon. He told CBS News that local law enforcement remains on high alert right now, but that their office is not aware of any additional specific and credible threats connected to this one. Of course, in this information environment, there are concerns that conspiracy theories and bad information regarding recovery efforts could spur further threats, but really relieved to report that at this point, the Sheriff's Office believes that the suspect acted alone. Reed?
What's really fascinating, Nicole, is that not only the Biden administration at the very top of the federal government saying that this misinformation really lands in neighborhoods and causes a lot of problems, but we're also seeing Sheriff's Department and local municipalities speaking up saying there's no evidence of what this misinformation points to. So thank you for that follow-up. Glad to loop you back into CBS News 24/7 with that breaking news update. Once again, authorities arrest a person accused of making threats to FEMA employees in North Carolina. CBS News Homeland and Security Justice reporter Nicole Skanga. Thank you.
I wanted to introduce you to this guy. How I was introduced to him.
If you had a message for the White House and how they've handled the situation up here in North Carolina, what would your message be, Sheriff Wright?
If you're going to do the things you've been talking about doing, we just assume you stay out of the way and let the good men and women around the mountain area and the foothills take care of our own, because you're nothing more than a boat anchor.
No help. FEMA hasn't been helpful.
Wait a minute. That lady that's running for president, talks about the $750. Huh. What about all that money you give to Ukraine and all these other people that really want to kill us, don't want to do anything to help us? Why don't you just give that money to them? That's who you want to give it to again.
Ukraine.
But if you had a message,
the ones that want to kill us. Fucking nutso. So like that's what I had this other video queued up that ended up playing while my mouse was dead. This guy, I just had this like hair up my ass about like who he was, and so I was just like, I started looking into him, and here he is from about 4 years ago, and I want you to guess what you think this guy is. Like, just for any of you guys who've been paying attention in the last couple of years, what do you think this guy is? He's a sheriff to stay out of his town. Who do you think? What does that sound like to you? Hold on.
Chief Sheriff out of the sector too.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that you're right. I am a constitutional sheriff, and I represent
Constitutional sheriff. That's right. For those of you who don't know what that is, let's... Ooh. So this is coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center. The constitutional sheriff ideology. The origins of the constitutional sheriff ideology lie in the two twin concepts of the county supremacy movement. The county, not the state or federal government, should control all land within its borders, and the county sheriff should be the ultimate law enforcement authority in the U.S. These ideas were pioneered by Christian identity minister William Portal Gale in the 1970s and described as posse comitatus. Long story short, these are these fucking idiots who think that through a certain reading of the Constitution that actually delineates powers down, that there is like an unbroken chain from them. I forget where exactly they think they derive their authority from directly, like via it. Yeah, let me this is a long episode. Let me just no. Okay. Never mind. I was going to put a little bit of a majority report where I thought that they interviewed somebody about like how the constitutional sheriff thing works, but basically they think that through a specific reading of the Constitution that gives them basically the right and final authority to be like judge, jury, and executioner. Hey guys, so I wanted to hop back on here because I was editing a video about the constitutional sheriff thing, and I realized that like I didn't provide a really good explanation to what this sort of stuff is. I was very smug about like him, about like what he stands for, but I didn't give very good context to what he stands for. So I wanted to be able to pull up something that gave a satisfactory answer that wasn't just me reading off of Wikipedia. So I pulled up the John Oliver from like 4 years ago about the constitutional sheriffs. I will be hopping around a little bit on this and providing some context, but other than that, I'm just going to kind of let it play.
Our main story tonight concerns law enforcement, and specifically the job of sheriff. That's not to be confused with sheriff, the proper way to describe Cher dressed like a cowgirl. That's a sheriff. This is a sheriff. It's a key difference you need to learn. Now, when you hear the word sheriff, most of us have two immediate associations. One, Western lawmen who handle cattle rustling and other livestock-related crimes. And two, Joe Arpaio, the infamously anti-immigrant sheriff. And this next clip actually includes both, as Sheriff Joe gives an update on a suspect nabbed through an interesting investigation.
Finally, he decided that he wanted to travel to Phoenix to meet our undercover agent and to have
the pedophile
sex
sheriff, if you remember him.
with his horse.
Yeah, now, that sounds truly bizarre until you realise that the horse in question was this one. So, you get it, right? I mean, I'm not saying I want to fuck a horse or anything, but if you are gonna fuck a horse, it should definitely be this one. Now, would I travel to Phoenix to fuck that horse? Well, it depends, doesn't it? How much are flights? If it's a $300 round trip, of course not. But if it's $170 or something like that and the hot daddy horse seemed open to it, well, definitely. My wife and I have a list of 5 people that we're allowed to have sex with. Hers are all completely understandable, handsome, kind. They run law enforcement at a county level. Cities or towns might have their own police departments as well, but in many areas, sheriffs are the only law enforcement around, and they oversee a lot of officers. Around 25% of local law enforcement officers work for sheriffs. That's 1 in 4 cops. And depending on where you live, your sheriff might be good, bad, or a total weirdo. And I will not say which ones are the weirdos, because that would be unfair to Kenny Boone, who, until recently, was sheriff in Florence County, South Carolina, where he made this incredible PSA.
They said one hit wouldn't hurt. They said one hit wouldn't hurt.
Oh my God.
They lied. I'm Sheriff Kenny Boone. Please talk to your kids about drugs. Talk to your kids about drugs.
What are you doing? That is so magnificently weird. I want 900 more versions of that PSA where Kenny Boone implores us to talk to our kids about other things. Talk to your kids about slugs. Please, talk to your...
Things my opponents may try to use to tarnish my integrity. As a 16-year-old, I received a ticket for not having my driver's license in my possession. I've been in fender benders that were my fault. And about 10 years ago, as a young police officer, I attended a law enforcement Halloween party dressed as ruthless drug kingpin Big Meech Flannery.
Whoa.
I did it to disparage a criminal whose actions hurt our community and country. That was a different time.
Wow! For the record as well, the different time he's talking about was 10 years ago when blackface was still widely considered, and this is true, bad. And once in office, sheriffs hold much more power than you may realise. So with over 1,000 sheriff elections this year, providing security to pursuing fugitives. And those posse members can be basically anyone, which is how this actual school shooting drill came to include an arguably famous face.
This is every parent's worst nightmare.
Get on the ground! Go up! Face down! Get on the ground!
These men are learning how to fight the next school shooter.
You can't wait that long.
And oddly enough, their coach is 1990s action film legend Steven Seagal.
For every second that goes by, I told you this. You're going to have dead children.
I'm in it.
Yeah, that's Deputy Steven Seagal. And watching Steven Seagal conduct an active shooter drill while discussing dead children is a lot like looking at a picture of Steven Seagal's current hair. You immediately think to yourself, this is highly unusual and upsettingly dark. Still, one of the greatest powers that sheriffs have is to set law enforcement priorities in their county, and that in and of itself is not entirely a bad thing. Some sheriffs have advanced genuinely progressive ideas like deprioritising low-level drug offences, or in the case...
He doesn't even just talk like the way he thinks like a black guy talks. He doesn't just code switch to try and sound like a black guy. He tries to sound like, what's that one actor? The one who's like semi-cross-eyed? He specifically tries to talk like him.
Case of one Texas sheriff fighting hard for bail reform. Richard Jones in Butler County, Ohio, has refused to allow his deputies to carry Narcan to rescue people mid-overdose, which is an incredible policy to adopt in a place where at one point overdoses were killing more people than all other causes of death combined.
Yeah.
Ton of leeway over how to do that. Up until just last year in Alabama, sheriffs were legally allowed to personally pocket any leftover money designated to feed prisoners, giving them a pretty strong incentive to skimp on inmate food, which happened. The most spectacular example of this was Sheriff Todd Entrikin of Etowah County. Over the years, there have been accusations of problems with the quality and quantity of food in his jails. And while he denied those allegations, 2 years ago, it emerged that he'd bought a $740,000 beach house. And if that seems like a suspiciously large purchase for someone with his salary, this probably won't surprise you.
This is really...
Over the last 3 years,
I just want you to know that this right here is the reason why that people say ACAB. Because this guy is supposed, like sheriffs, these are supposed to be like the guys who are the exemplary law enforcement agents. They're the ones that we voted for. And then they oversee all these other, like, they have jurisdictional power. They have all of this stuff. They're supposed to be the best of them. And yet they seem to exemplify all the worst tendencies of police officers.
Sheriff's food program has run under budget, letting him pocket the leftovers. $750,000, all of it is taxpayer money.
You agree that the optics of this are terrible?
The optics, yes, but I can't change the optics.
Oh yeah, I'd love for the optics to change here. I mean, I want to keep doing what I'm doing, though.
I hear people say there was feces on the wall, blood everywhere.
Government or a recall vote, and those are very rarely successful. So sheriffs operate with a lot of impunity, and they can get pretty belligerent if anyone questions them. Remember Kenny Boone, the sheriff who hated drugs but loved yelling at fake...
All right. I felt like I remembered a smug British accent telling me about what constitutional sheriffs. Oh, that's pretty cool. Here we go. This might be just like a way quicker. This might just be a way quicker way.
The Joe Arpaio, who's known for forcing inmates to wear pink underwear, for running an actual chain gang of minors in a juvenile detention.
He's not nearly as charming as Toucan Sam, but he'll have to do. Because at least he's going to get to the point. Let me just make sure that the constitutional sheriff thing isn't going to show up anywhere.
In the Justice Department or
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
And lie to us. And just spare a thought there for the attorney who... Their response was chilling.
I told him that he was turning blue.
Discriminatory bias against Latinos who are up.
Okay, yeah, this is just Joe Arpaio. Maybe.
Called unconstitutional policing and a pervasive culture of discriminatory bias against Latinos who are up to 9 times more likely than whites to be stopped by a Maricopa County deputy. In one incident cited in the federal...
Okay, yeah. I mean, no, he's terrible and deserves like coverage, but this was like it was so long ago. I don't even know that he operates anymore.
Detention center, and for yelling at detained undocumented people, quote, "There is nobody with more authority than me." Arpaio, the self-proclaimed constitutional sheriff, was later granted then-President Trump's very first presidential pardon for criminal contempt of court. In a very Western movie kind of way, Arpaio believed he was not just the law enforcement, but the law itself. There was no law enforcement higher than him, the elected sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona. Now, Arpaio was a prime example of what we now know to be so-called constitutional sheriffs. Those who follow this theory believe that the county sheriffs have the power and the duty to make their own determinations about which laws to enforce and how to enforce them. It's not just enforcing laws and following the Constitution. It also involves resisting laws and nullifying and refusing to enforce laws that a sheriff has somehow deemed unconstitutional themselves. This week, Democratic Congressman Sean Casten of Illinois hosted a discussion panel with legal and constitutional experts from around the country. Here is his warning to the nation.
The constitutional sheriff's moment is one of the scariest things in our democracy right now because it threatens the very existence of our democracy.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta get
Sheriffs are generally elected by the public, and they are typically the highest county-level law enforcement officer. Their duties vary by region, but there are federal and state laws that supersede county-level authority. This should be obvious to anybody who attended the 3rd grade. This group of so-called constitutional sheriffs believe that their scope and power stretch far and very wide. And here's why Congressman Casten is so spooked by the constitutional sheriff's movement. Last year, after a mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, left 7 people dead and 48 others wounded, the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, banned the sale and distribution of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in that state. Within a few days of the law's enactment, more than 90 of Illinois' 102 county sheriffs released statements saying they would not enforce the assault weapons ban. Many of the letters were nearly identical, by the way, provided to them by the Illinois Sheriff's Association. At a press conference days after the new gun restrictions were passed, Sheriff William Rutan from Crawford County, Illinois, said this.
I am a constitutional officer. I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States first and foremost.
and that me and several of the other sheriffs in the state, like most of us,
really is time we retire that document.
Several state's attorneys, along with the Crawford County State's Attorney, have sent out these letters stating that we feel this law that has recently passed is unconstitutional, and how we do not want to, or how we are not going to enforce any of that law.
Now, in 2011, two-term sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, Richard Mack, founded the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association of America, CSPOA. Sheriff Mack was also a member and board member of the Oath Keepers at the time, a far-right extremist group that we've now come to know. He says
they're more than a far-right extremist group. They are a terrorist group. The Southern Poverty Law Center says that they are a terrorist group. Like, it's not... The Oath Keepers claim to be defending the U.S. Constitution, fighting tyranny, but as former Oath Keeper spokesman Jason Van Tautenhove, describes the group as actually selling the revolution. The threats to American liberties that the Oath Keepers say the federal government is responsible for are, in reality, a set of baseless conspiracy theories. Yeah, no joke. Obviously, that's kind of like their bread and butter, right? They love their conspiracy theory nonsense. But yeah, anti-government general, constitutional sheriffs, militia.
The group in 2014, but he's continued to appear publicly close with Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, who, by the way, was just convicted of seditious conspiracy for his role in organizing January 6th. This is from CSPOA's website. Quote, the law enforcement powers held by the sheriff supersede those of any agent, officer, elected official, or employee from any level of government when in the jurisdiction of the county. The vertical separation of powers in the Constitution makes it clear that the powers of the sheriff even supersede the powers of the president. When the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre prompted a push for gun control measures in Congress, Sheriff Mack, the guy who runs that organization of Arizona, compiled a list of nearly 500 sheriffs who he said had vowed to uphold and defend the Constitution against, quote, Obama's unconstitutional gun control measures. The theory is used most commonly by sheriffs across the country to resist gun control laws and to enforce harder lines on immigration, but also to resist tax laws, marriage equality, land management, and environmental policies. In 2021, sheriffs across the nation used the same logic to defy COVID-19 lockdowns and mask mandates. And last year, during the midtown election, CSPOA and other right-wing groups teamed up to station poll watchers at ballot drop.
Although it seems that they are making that case against the Oath Keepers that were at January 6th.
Boxes and voting centers. And they launched a direct hotline that was supposed to connect poll watchers directly to the sheriff's office. While just about 10% of the nation's 3,000 sheriffs are actually registered with the CSPOA, half of sheriffs nationwide who responded to a Marshall Project survey believe that their authority as county sheriff outranked that of federal or state government. Whether used to oppose mask mandates or gun restrictions.
So, long story short, they think that because they are like individuals who have like superseding authority over like basically all like enforcement of law within a county, that they are the law within a county, which is partially true if it was, fucking 1812. If it was like 1850 or something like that, and what we had was like cattle rustlers, and you need to be able to deputize people into the law in order to increase your martial force, sure, totally get it. But at this stage, the federal government is organized and mechanized enough that, to be perfectly honest, the fact that we even have state governments is frankly ridiculous. But to the extent that these these narcissistic losers think that they have authority over like interpretations of the Constitution when they haven't even taken a single law class in their life is not only laughable, but also sickening. Sorry, I got my lib up there. First of all, throw away the Constitution. It's trash. I think every country should throw away their Constitution after a couple of years, if for no other reason, so that we can get rid of the flowery language bullshit. Because it seems that our language becomes more frank and upfront as we go on. less euphemistic. People are less inclined to get their panties in a twist about like just calling certain things as they sees them. I mean, like back in the day, people were worried about like about seeming like they want it too much whenever they ran for president. It seemed to be uncouth. Now you have people who openly talk about their vying for power, and it's like, you know what? I like it better now. I like my political opponents and my political allies to be as open as possible about where and when they want power. So, to be perfectly frank, for no other reason, Constitution should be rewritten so that we can dispense with this what would the founding fathers would have wanted. Who cares? They no longer run this country. We do. Anyway, spiel over. So that's the context for what a constitutional sheriff is. It is a LARPing dipshit who wants to do like the forever purge, but in real life. And to be perfectly frank, it's a good thing that most of these guys are fat and tase themselves in the balls until their heart explodes, because we would be in a lot of serious trouble if that weren't true. I mean, we already are in a lot of serious trouble, and it's going to get, these types of dipshits are still going to get a lot of people killed. But what I'm saying is that they would present a unique threat to the fabric of social reality. But if we ever got to like, not to the fabric of social, but if they were actually like real, organized, and in shape chiefly, instead of some of the fattest human beings you've ever seen, then we would be in non-hyperbole deep shit. But luckily that's not true.